Hi and welcome back. So, as I mentioned in my last video, next week I will be running the first race I've run since February. And the race in question that I'm running is in a town called Voorheesville down near Albany, at State Park. So, just a quick little rundown. They're limiting the amount of people running the race to 240. Typically, it's only 300 people anyway, but they're doing that to be extra safe, I think. Or it is actually the state's guidelines for, doing larger gatherings. They're splitting people up into groups of 40, 6 groups of 40, and releasing them at different points, and actually releasing only a couple runners at a time every few seconds. So they're being very careful with how they're proceeding with the race, which is good. And I can see this as being hopefully a good opportunity for people to see that some races can be done under these circumstances, and that I think a lot of this will be adopted anyway. For instance, they have water stations along the course. However, you bring your own bottle, and when you get to the water station, there's like a pump. The person standing there fills it, and off you go, limiting contact with everything. So that'll be interesting to see. And of course, keeping masks when you're unable to socially distance. So it'll be interesting to see how this all goes. But I wanted to talk about my first experience with the race. But before that, I did end up getting trail running shoes from Salomon. They're the Speed Cross 4. I just broke them in running a 12.5 mile run here at the trails, and very comfortable shoes. And I think my favorite thing about them is that they have the quick laces. So basically you tighten the laces, and then you've got like a lock mechanism that you pull down to the base of the shoe, and then tuck all the extra string into the pocket on the tongue, which I really wish a lot of other shoe companies would do to limit possibility of shoes coming untied while out running. So I'm sure a lot of other shoe companies will end up adopting similar technologies, but it's already something I really love about these pair of shoes. So anyway, on to the race. So what happened, I'll preface this with the fact that despite the fact that I am running it again, this was my second least favorite race I've ever done. It is not the race's fault for that. The race itself is very cool. It was partially my own fault and weather that caused me to not like this race that much the first time I ran it. So basically, what happened, I had run a race over, this was also my, March, May, August, and October. Yeah, I think this was my 4th half marathon I ever ran. I ran Syracuse in March of 2017. I ran the Erie Canal for the first time in May of 2017. I ran Sylvan Beach, which will be its own video, in August of 2017. And then I ran this one. So basically, when I ran Sylvan Beach, they gave you the option of doing a 5K the day before and then a 10 or a half the next day. So I'd ended up doing a race pretty much each month of 2017 with the exceptions of January and February. So what I ended up wanting to do was run a double race in October and a double race in August, so that I could get 12 races in 1 year. So, which that math doesn't seem to add up, because I don't think, considering what happened to the race that I was planning in October, I ended up running a race to replace one in October, and then I ran another in December. So I don't know, unless there was another time where I ran another race in there, but I can't remember right now. But anyway, point being, Sylvan Beach was being done by a company. I forget what the name of the company was. It does not exist anymore, probably because Sylvan Beach was such a bust. And this particular race, or double race that I was going to do on October, it was supposed to be a 5K and a half in Rome, New York. And it was supposed to take place at Griffiss Air Base. And like 2 days before it was going to happen, they canceled it. No explanation, nothing. Just all of a sudden, nope, we're not doing it. So by that point, I was like, well, I had planned on, finishing out the year by doing these races. So I found this one in October, and then the Big Apple half marathon in December. That's another one I'm going to get into in another video. That's a favorite of mine that I ran. Anyway, so this particular race is called the Hairy Gorilla Half and Squirrely 6 Mile. And as I said, it takes place in Thatcher Park in Voorheesville, which is down near Albany. And it's usually the end of October, so it's Halloween themed, and I was kind of looking for a Halloween themed race to do anyway, so I kind of like the idea of holiday themed races, so I was trying to get at least one race for each holiday at some point. So anyway, so I found this, and we made plans to do it. So weather was perfect. It was supposed to be perfectly fine the few days before. Then all of a sudden, a rainstorm hit Friday or Saturday night. I can't remember which day it actually landed on. This time it actually is on a Saturday. But the first time I ran it, I don't remember which day it landed on, but in any event, the night before, there was a pretty big rainstorm came through. They sent out a message to everyone warning that the trail was going to be wet, it was going to be muddy, because it's fall time, dead leaves were going to be all over the place, so to dress accordingly and be careful while running. And there's a possibility that it was going to be raining still. So, as I said, this was my first time running a trail race. I had never planned on running in trails. The only reason I picked this was because it was close by, it was Halloween themed, and it was within the month of October. And it was a half marathon, so I was like, well, I'm doing this one then. So I didn't have trail shoes. Like I said, I'd never run on a trail at this point. So I just went in with one of my racing pairs of shoes. I think I only had one or two pairs at that point, so I took the older pair. figuring that it would get muddy, and that pair kind of has a look to it that you wouldn't notice that it got muddy. So I took that, went down. It was misty the whole time waiting to race. Misty, cold, not pleasant at all. They had Halloween decorations up near the start and for a little ways through the beginning, because the half and the 6 mile courses both follow each other to a certain extent, and then the half continues on while the 6 mile turns around and goes back. So I started out in the mist. I had worn extra layers to help with, 1, the rain, and 2, the chilly, cold feeling. So, going along, my biggest memories of that first time running it, there was a point where we were going around and up a hill, and it was all on rocks. And it was precarious, so we were all being incredibly careful, and there was no passing anyone, there was no anything like that. You just had to follow the person in front of you. And if they were going slower, you had to slow down until you got off of this spot, because there was those stones, rocks, whatever, were not conducive to passing. They were hardly conducive to running on, especially with them being wet. So, then a little ways later, when it was just the half runners, there was a spot where you actually had to jump off a ledge down, and there was someone standing at the bottom yelling to be careful. And all I remember is jumping down, landing, and going, oh, because I felt something happen in my groin. Didn't know, if I pulled something or just the muscle was going, hey, we haven't done this before, what are you doing? So luckily that discomfort went away after a while, but it was still not pleasant, that part. And then later on there was a spot there, you're running through a state park. It's all on like somewhat maintained trails, and there were a couple spots where they didn't really put markers so that you could see them very well. And there was, there was a spot where we were coming down a hill, and there was me and 2 other people. And the one person actually slipped and fell. I remember turning and saying, "Are you okay?" And they were like, "Yeah, I'll be fine, go ahead." So I went off, and because it was muddy, and I think I almost took a header in that same spot with them, but it was just them, and they ended up passing me again later on, but they were definitely hurting when I saw them the next time. But you got to the bottom, and there was a little teeny stake that had an arrow on it pointing to go that way. And I watched 2 fellow runners go straight forward, and I looked at them, and I looked over, because you saw other markers over here, but they were all very small, so if you weren't paying very close attention, you'd miss them and go off the trail, off the course, and then add, either get lost in the park or just add a whole bunch of mileage that you don't need. So I quickly yelled to them, the pointer's going this way. Called them back, so we all went down the other way. Those are my big things that I remember on the course. Walking around prior to the race and everything, it was very nice looking park. And even while on the race, on the course, it was a very nice looking park. You kind of there was a spot where you could walk over, and there was kind of a cliff down and you saw the fog over some trees in there, and it was very scenic, very pretty, but I mainly remember it for the rain, the cold, the mud, leaves, and trying not to trip over tree roots and stones. And I thought, oh, I'll be fine because, I run in Clinton where, their sidewalks aren't exactly, totally level everywhere. And tree roots are trying to pop up through the sidewalks. And, I ran the Erie Canal, which was kind of almost sort of a trail race, except you were on pavement, but still, again, tree roots were trying to come through, etc. Oh, this was a bad idea for me to do, honestly, with what I had been training with at that point, and with what I was running with at that point. It taught me a lot, and now going into it, this time I knew enough to get myself a pair of trail shoes to use. So yeah. And I know many of you watching this are probably like, well, if you didn't enjoy it the first time, why are you running it again? Like I just said, I know better now. I've trained more with trails. Granted, the trail that I run is nowhere near like what this is, but nevertheless, and honestly, I got emails from them saying, hey, we're still putting on the race, and I was like, huh, do I want to do it? I haven't done a race since February. Yeah, I want to do it. So there you go. So hopefully this time with the trail shoes, I will have a better time running this. There will be a recording of the footage from the race. I'll record that, of course, during the race, and then edit it in the week after. So I'll do another video for next week to post in the interim. I think I'll talk about the Monster Mash that I ran in Delaware in 2018. Yeah, 2018. So, because that was another Halloween-themed October race. So, I'll talk about that next week. So, until then, remember, we're in it for the long run. Peace and love. And thank you for watching.